Okay. This is Grüezi. Grüezi. I can't spell it correctly because I'm not Swiss, but I've become Swiss. I live in Switzerland. And I'm an illustrator. I began as an illustrator, ended up a teacher. And at one point, I realized that what you do all the time becomes the metaphor through which you understand life. So drawing, as an illustrator, has become my metaphor to understand life. In the same way that if you work with a loom, you think everything is connected. Or if you work as a gardener, you understand the possibilities of everything, the possibilities of a seed. And you have to do it all the time to think that way. I think it's not enough just to look at drawings or just to walk through a garden. On the other hand, I'm a teacher, which means that like a gardener, I see and understand people in terms of their potential, of their possibilities to be unfolded. So what you see here is a cover for STRAPAZIN. It's a cover I did a few years ago, let's say correctly 19 years ago. And this was a special issue about drone reportage. Back then we called it comic reportage, and basically Joe Sacco was the only one who did it. All the other contributions back then were from artists who presented their travel diaries. So travel diaries, to travel and to draw, that's something I love to do. Here you see in China, I did this in Beijing, it's a hutong that's being demolished. Here another drawing from China. And of course I traveled through India, and we went to see a Najarak printing workshop. And this is where I do this kind of drawings. But a drawn travel diary is not a reportage. A reportage is a question. A reportage is about people. So what I want to do is, I was asked to present this book. It's a book we published recently, and it's a book about the possibilities of drawn reportage, and we call it Visual Essay. And I'll explain you later why. This is by Christoph Fischer. Christoph Fischer is a former student of mine. Basically, he made his diploma when I came to school. And you'll agree that the guy has quite a gifted hand. And that's because Christoph is obsessed with drawing. And wherever he goes, he records what he sees, writes down what he hears. He meets people. And nothing is more interesting than people. So here he decided to draw the guys hanging around all day around Central Station in Lucerne. It's a place where some of them are homeless, basically most are lost in their life. Everybody's drinking too much. And here you see one guy mentioning to him, if I could draw like you, I'd be a millionaire. What does he know about making a living through drawing? So I found that quite funny. But the wealth of an artist is not rarely measured in terms of millions or in lakhs. Here we have another one who says, if anybody looks funny at your drawings, people don't have respect. You tell me, I'll knock them down for you. Drawing is a very intimate way to approach people. You expose yourself. You're vulnerable. You'll get in touch. Everybody sees what you are doing while you are doing it. You can't hide behind a camera. So if someone, let's say, might be excused for thinking that in order to do this, you must be able to draw well. Drawing well for most people equals to draw this way, to draw in a realistic fashion. Now, let me present. It's not somebody else. It's a self-portrait I did 4 years old. And have you ever asked yourself how it comes that every child, given a pencil and a piece of paper, will start drawing, just so, for the pleasure of it? I have noticed restaurants know this, airlines know it too. They are keen to provide free pencils and paper to accompanying kids, always with the inherent hope that this will keep the little rascals busy and quiet. So here's a question that keeps bothering me. How come that the same child, if you ask it 20 years later on, If you ask it, can you draw? It will most likely tell you, no, I can't. Is it possible that what people really want to say is, I can't draw well? Now, that was not the question. Let me tell you another story, something different. A few years ago, I was giving a workshop about drawing a reportage at the NID. So everybody had been assigned a task to interview a given guy on a campus. One student was asked to interview the guy who was in charge of travel buses, this kind of technical details, organized transports. And next morning he comes to me when everybody met to explain the outlines of his or her project. The student comes to me and complains and tells me, I can't do that. So I ask why. This guy is so boring. I've asked him, what is your favorite movie? He said, I don't like movies. I asked him, what is your favorite food? I eat everything. What is your favorite pet? I hate animals. Of course, I sent the poor guy back, not without mentioning that no one is boring. And maybe he should reconsider his questions, because is he really sure that he's really interested about the tastes of this guy? So here he went off. The next day he comes back saying, oh, you have to know, I'm a very religious person. I can't do this. I said, why? What happened? This guy confessed that he burned down a temple as a kid. Now, I think, now you have a story. But he was not able to do it. He made a choice, and I find it very difficult to deal with it. He ignored the man's story. Not only ignored it, he twisted his narrative. I think empathy is not about the people you like, it's about the people you find difficult to like or to understand. It's about testing your levels of tolerance. So let's see what you think, what you as an audience think about this guy. Oh, one of my early drawings. That should have been shown when I came to the point that nobody draws, or most people give up drawing during their life. So what about this guy? The reportage is called One Leg Too Many. It's about a guy who dreams of having his leg amputated. It's his phantasm. He has this strange obsession that his life will only be complete or perfect after one leg has been removed. Don't you think this sounds crazy? Insane? Isn't that how we see this guy? Now we have a psychologist who explains that he suffers from a very rare condition called BIID, Body Integrity Identity Disorder. So he's perfectly aware that this sounds crazy. And he's perfectly aware that he can't talk to anybody about it. So sometimes he binds his leg like this, tries to stand in front of a mirror and to test how he would look without his leg. And it's, I think, do you see something? This contrast is very high. I'm sorry for that. It's a little bit, sorry, is there a possibility to reduce contrast? But let me explain what you should see here. Is there's one saw, and on the other one you have a cut-off leg. So the student Lea Büchel, who has done this project, she doesn't draw as well as Christoph, the first one, but she uses drawing as a language. She uses metaphor, she uses juxtaposition, and I think she allows us to feel for this guy and to understand how he feels. Something completely different here. Here Jenny Frew, her portrait of an author of crossword puzzles is itself presented in form of a crossword puzzle. You have to connect the words and the images. So you have down there, number 1 is the question, Trudy Müller-Bossart, name of the person interviewed. Number 2, Okay, so you come. Though I know absolutely well I'll regret this. I'll be screwed time-wise. Okay, looking forward to meet you. Number 3. I only come once a week to the offices because I have no place of my own here. I use the meeting room. Number 14. I'm not too curious about my fans. In the village next to my home, an old woman wouldn't want to die without knowing the solution of one specific question. Number 4, put these 2 on my laptop and I'll feel a little bit more at home. All the essays I present are from a book, from this book I showed you, and they attribute to the students' curiosity, their intelligence, their courage, their creativity, I'd say our precious. When confronted with the difficult task to decide upon who could make it in the book and who would be rejected, because you have to make a selection, we never saw the book as a collection of best-of showcase. I find showcases boring. We select the most diverse voices, the hitherto unseen possibilities, how to speak in images and words. We also knew we couldn't call the book, label it, give it the title visual essay because nobody knows what this is, so everybody would have asked, what is it? So for the cover design, this is a sketch from the designer. For the cover design, we wanted to use a type for the title, tabloid style. Then we added a few teasers, and as every book is an object, we decided to choose a very thin paper, the paper readers are accustomed to when they read newspapers, which is not too precious. And at the end of the book, we have this reportage. It's about a guy who works at the waste incinerator. And he tells us that newspapers are not recycled, they are burned. But we gave the publication a nice plastic sheet cover to protect it, to honor the paradox that it is a book nonetheless, and every book deserves to be treated with care. You may want to keep it. So I assume nearly everybody in this audience will agree that drawing as a language, that drawing is a language. I know artists feel that way. But now imagine being asked by someone who doesn't draw, let us say 95% of the population, to please explain this concept in a few words or in a nutshell if you prefer. And then, only then, you will most likely not notice, as I do, that you no longer know. Now, those are the people who tell you that they can't draw. They often add that they admire your skill, that they would like to draw. And because I keep hearing this, I can't draw, I began to wonder. How come, how do people forget that everybody can draw? Car insurers know that. I remember that buying a car insurance, they handed me out paper and pencil, just in case there were an accident, I could make a nice little visual sketch. No need to draw a car realistically for that. Everybody understands space in terms of seeing and motion. And what else is drawing? Seeing translated into motion. If somebody builds you a house, I don't think you want him to tell you a story. You don't want your architect to explain you how nice it would look. All you want to do is a visualization, a plan. So on her reportage about safety on airports, as another student, Fiona Fair, she provides us with a map. Her task was to interview people working security on the airfield. So now you can locate what they say on the map. As for instance, if a plane is ready for takeoff, nobody is allowed on the field. Security takes care of that. But then we have also the author's voice in italics, and she comments, as long as they are not distracted. Or, a fence is protecting the airport. Nobody can enter it without a security check. She asks, nobody? The infographic style pretends objectivity. In the same way that we pretend that we can make the world safe and sure. But I think both absolute safety, absolute objectivity are illusions. Irony comes with a subversive quality. You have Joe Sacco, and Joe Sacco told me that when he was in Gaza, all the streets, there's mud. All over the place there's mud. If you write an article, a reportage about Gaza, you can mention that there's mud. You may mention it twice, you may mention it several times, but it risks getting boring. But if you put it in every drawing, on every page, whenever people go out, you will have the mud, and it's there all the time. And this gives you a sense of the place, I think, that no written reportage can. Let us compare that to reportage Johanna Scheipler was doing. Scheipler is another student. This time the subject was meat, and she chose to go to a slaughterhouse. So unfortunately here too, I think contrast erases the image. Then we have text. We have this. What you would see would be tiles. And we have the comment of the people who work there. Here we have a guy who said, in Kosovo I was a teacher, but here I have to work as a butcher. She places the guy on the page. Here's the text, what he's saying. And now, when text and image come together, what happens? I think the chain is a very good detail. It's very brutal. And of course, you're in a slaughterhouse. Now you feel that you're in a slaughterhouse. So I think teaching drawing is first about teaching how to see. So sometimes I ask my students to close their eyes and be aware that how the world, the moment you close your eyes, becomes senses, becomes sound, becomes smell. To learn seeing starts maybe with unlearning. To understand that we do not see what is there, we see how we see, and then we see how we think about something. 2 examples. Ask my students to draw themselves on the mirror. Now, they were very astonished to discover how tiny their portraits had become. Apparently, we see ourselves much more important and aggrandizing ourselves. We don't realize how small we are in reality. 6,000 kilometers away, I discovered here in India Wali paintings. And that's what I mean, we see how we think. The Wali is a tribal society, and they have a very unique visual language. I wouldn't call it style, I call it language. They obviously do neither use central perspective, and surely they are not making portraits. They are not interested in an individual's point of view. I think they wouldn't even know what a portrait is good for. When you live in a tribal society, the self is less important. Everything has to exist side by side, man and nature, trees and birds. And the moment we understand their stories, we learn from them, in the same way they can learn from us. I found a quote by, now I have to look again, yes, by John Le Carré. And I want to read it to you because I love it. It's, to learn somebody's language means entering somebody's territory. It means understanding his culture, a hand that reaches out. The decision to learn a new language is, to me in itself, an act of friendship, a little bit like falling in love. I could fall in love with every language. It's part of human curiosity. I take that as a guideline. And now if you want to see what is there, really there, I think we must learn how to unfold our perception, to see not only what we know, but what we encounter, to become an author. So let me present 2 different voices again, one very soft-spoken, the other one very loud. Cora Meyer drew a reportage about her grandmother. Her grandmother needs 24/7 care, so 2 women alternatively come from Poland to take care of her grandmother. Now look at this very intimate relationship between the 2 women. And I think the way it is rendered delicately and soft in contrast, and at the same time they always can be seen, the way they are drawn, as one. They become one. And it's a very tender relationship, but at the same time it's an economic necessity. These women come because they can't earn the same wage in Poland. The gap in income is huge. So of course, they miss their husbands, they miss their children. And on the last page you have the grandmother asking, they are playing cards together. Do you play cards with your kids? And she says, no, I play so often cards with you. When I am at home, I don't play with my kids anymore, at least not cards. And on the other hand, you have the old woman, the one from Poland, washing her and commenting about the quality of her skin, saying how tender it is, how soft it is. And here, completely different style, very loud now. Jonas Baumann was a street artist before he came to school, and he juxtaposes two different voices. It's about graffiti on the trains, and on the left you have the guy who is cleaning the trains, and on the right you have the graffiti artists. So it's about the same thing, and nonetheless it's completely different. So here he says, to clean one wagon where people sprayed upon, it costs about 10,000 Swiss francs. I would say that's about 7 lakh. And it costs around 7 working hours. On the other hand, we have the street artists who say, that's fine, I have to invest around 50 Swiss francs for one train. Here we have the guy again, he says, my name is Manuel Graf, I work with the railway company, and I'm responsible for cleaning the trains. He says, my artist's name is, I have to go here to read this, I call myself Gypsy, and I've been doing this for the last 12 years. The other guy commenting, probably out of sheer boredom, they are vandalizing, they are ruining the trains. And the other guy is saying, life in Switzerland is so grey. All I try to do is to bring in some color, to make pleasure to the people, give people pleasure. So when we started the visual essay course, I started it together with a teacher, and I have to thank him for what he did with this course. His name is Yves Noyau. He had 2 drawings by Yves. This is a drawing he did at I don't know how to call this exactly, a hospital where people come to die. And they didn't want a photographer to come, because this would have been too intimate? Too personal. So here's another drawing. In a certain way, drawing excuses a lot of things. You can say a lot of things in drawing that would sound banal or vulgar or whatever in a different medium. So when we started the course, we didn't have really a clue what exactly to do. So there were 2 teachers at the beginning, Hans Recklin, and here's saying one thing that was always, we took it as kind of guidance, how to make it interesting. And then there's something else. We understood one thing. We understood that if you draw, you go out, you see something, you hear something. A visual essay is a testimony. It's a visual testimony. But beside that, we decided just to move on, do this course, and learn on the way. So one of the first things after giving 2 courses, we thought it's time to reconsider everything. This is not working the way we wanted it to work. So we, the 3 teachers, tried to do a visual reportage. And we went to a center where they take care of people who can't find work, and they sell old furniture, things like this. So here I have a little memory of this event from Yves, who is saying, we are here to make a drone reportage for the asylum organization. May I make a portrait of you? No. I understand that in certain cultures, if I make a portrait, you may believe that I'm stealing your soul. That's not the problem. So what is the problem? Your colleague was here before you, and he drew me, and it was such a bad drawing, you won't do one. So we had Isabel Peterhans. Here's one page from a reportage she did, who after her diploma, she made the diplomas with visual reportage, now somehow made a career out of this. She documented the course, and that's how it starts. Something you do not yet know. We have two people, Eve, and on the other hand, we bring in a journalist because you have to learn a few journalistic techniques. So here it shows an example and says, this is a very bad example, please don't do it that way. This is not so good either. And then he picks up a subject, whatever subject that could be. So one was meat. And then people sit together and they make like a visual mind map and try to find out what are all the possibilities. This time it was about eating, it was about food was the subject, and they are thinking. Somebody is thinking about vomiting, another is thinking about the butchery, another one is thinking about health food, another about people who eat food from the garbage can. So together they work like an editorial stuff. They pick up ideas from each other, and then they decide where to go. And it's a course that is equally loved and equally feared. Loved in a certain way because they know what other people have done. It's really about authorship. They discover something about themselves, and feared because they have to go out. They have to talk to strangers. You can't do it with people you know. I remember giving these same courses to other classes and asking to talk a stranger and bring back a short comic. And what they did was, yes, I talked to my neighbor. Yes, I talked to my girlfriend. So, come on, please, be serious. So she went to a hotel school. Can I read this? So on the top, we have the command of one of the teachers, say, you must go out. You must talk to the people. Spend time with them, document, draw, understand through drawing, and be surprised what people will tell you. Here we have another guy who is going to a farmer and is asking them about antibiotics. And the other one says, yes, I know, antibiotics have a bad image, but you want the animals to be sick? So he says, people are very willing to talk to you. You just have to reach out to them. Here a different one, he went to a shop where they sell what you call power food. So when you're doing bodybuilding, building up your muscles, you can have power food and your muscles grow faster. And he's coming and asking, is it true that there are steroids in those power foods? Only in the internet. So the teacher is saying, don't trust everything that people say. Be careful, inform yourself, read about the subject. And then comes the most difficult part, because documenting is one thing, but editing it, bringing it together is something wholly and completely different. So now I have different students saying, okay, I have been smuggled into a group of hunters. The other one is saying something about doing research about people who vomit. And the last one is saying, I don't like what I've done, it doesn't look good. So here we have a sketch of somebody who went to a clinic where they are doing plastic surgery. And let me put it that way, everybody can observe, everybody experiences things, but through the craft, you can unfold your experience. It helps you to understand it. So this is a normal sketch like most people do it, and this is how the reportage looked at the end. Is the author present? It depends, he's always present. In the tone, in the voice. So here we see him, we don't see him of course, but on the panel on the right side you discover his sketchbook. And in the panel in the middle you discover that he had been given levers and he had been given a mask because he was allowed to go into the room where the operation was taking place. And he uses a very neutral style. So you see that it comes a little bit like, looks like an infographics. The whole process is neatly explained. It's liposuction. It's about somebody who thinks she is too fat and we have to remove a layer of fat. And you see how they are making marks, how they are pulling out additional, a little bit of fat. how the doctor is saying, it's all about knowing what you do. We have an explanation, how it works, very nicely done. Muscle, fat tissue, leather skin, the other skin, and then how it is cleaned. And I like the irony of this one, because first, have you seen, oops, wrong direction. Does this woman need fat to be removed? So let's see how it ends. This is the last picture. That's the last side. So I like how he's accompanied to the door, and please thank you for coming and thank you for your interest. And here's a self-portrait how he's riding home, back to school. A certain way I found this quote. This is by de Saint-Exupéry. He's running a magazine in France called 21, and they made a manifesto because it's a magazine about reportage, and they also show drawn reportage. And this magazine is only about content. You won't find any advertising in it. And he has a clear vision what he wants to do, to speak to those who have been deserted by the buzz, those who shape their own life without much noise. And I think I want to close a little bit on that one by showing a reportage by Simon Schnellmann, who interviewed a refugee who came from Congo. So here we see him, quite self-confident, still on the phone with his mother, saying, yes, there's a student here, he wants to interview me, so please hang up and I'll call you back later. And then he's explaining how he was working as a journalist in Congo, what it means to work as a journalist in Congo. It says you go to a demonstration and afterwards you have like 10 people dead and the government reports only 5 bodies. But you have done the body count, so it's important for people to know. I know we are not a democracy, but people are entitled to the truth. So at a certain moment, I had to go, I had to leave. I no longer can work in my job. I'm not allowed to work as a journalist here. And then suddenly, I don't know it's true because Simon told me so, he retires into his bed and pulls his blanket over his head. And when I look at this sequence of images, visually, how this guy disappears slowly. And the last sentence he puts there is, my profession is my passion. I'm a journalist. Do I miss work? Of course. And I think that's something you can only do in images. How to tell that just in text. I think it's not enough to have dreams, because everybody has dreams. It's not enough to have experiences. Everybody has experiences. But drawings, to be able to draw, to master visual language, is one way to articulate your dreams. And as a drawing, when you have drawn it, you can be sure that it belongs to you. So much. Thank you very much.